you an opportunity to come on in and join us on today's broadcast. So I know I'm late here at 7 o'clock, but the information is still hot. It's going to be good. I got me a little water here next to me, which I'm going to take a sip because I feel a little something in my throat. You know how that always happens just when you get ready to start talking. Other than that, you'll be fine. So anyway, just want to go ahead and say welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Teresa T.L. Matthew. I am the founder of SARE Nutritional Therapy. SARE stands for Sugar Addiction is Real. And you can go over to the website where over there we are giving out a free nutritional assessment. If you would like to have one, go to sairnt.com, click on About and scroll down and you will see the link for a nutritional assessment or a fat loss assessment. All right. I am also the CEO of Some Foods, the maker of Some Sweet, and Some Sweet is the most spectacular sweetener that is available on the market. Is what actually helped me to kick my sugar addiction and to get off of sugar. And I haven't had sugar in 2.5 years, something like that. I haven't had sugar since I started Some Sweet. How about that? And so I don't crave sugar anymore, so I don't have any of those sugar cravings or anything like that. So if you want to get a hold of Some Sweet, you can take a gander over to that website, and that is available at SUMSWEET.com, and you will see Some Sweet Plus over there along with its siblings, I would like to say, the original, Some Sweet Original, Some Sweet Brown, and Some Sweet Confectioners. All right, again, I'm going to ask you to, if you like this type of content, give us a thumbs up on the video. All right, if you like this kind of content, and let me know if you're tuning in live today. Let me know where you're coming from. You know, put your city and your state, or I guess that's what they say. Shout out your city, shout out your state, and let me know where you're coming from. Let me know where you're watching this from. I want to thank you for watching today, and if you're watching in the future, I want to thank you still for watching. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, in the last 3 episodes, we have the last 3 broadcasts, we have been talking about how much sugar is in your food. So last time I told you how you can actually measure how much sugar is in your food, but there were some terms that were there in that infographic that I shared with us that we looked at, and some terms in that infographic, and I'm going to just pop up the last infographic we did because it actually makes reference to that, I believe. It talks about, maybe it wasn't this one, maybe it was the other one, because the other one got a little bit more granular with it. So let's see here. Let's pop that one in. Yeah, there we go. So we see here it says glycemic load. Now, on some of the infographics, it had been saying glycemic load. Others were saying glycemic index. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what's the difference between glycemic load and glycemic index, and why is it important? Why is the differences important? And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. So I don't really have any infographics to pop up onto the screen to share with you guys. If you do want to get a hold of the information that I'm going to be reading from today, you can go over to the website. I will put a link there. You probably, put your email address in, say that you want it, and then I'll make sure that it's made available to you. Give me, a minute to get that set up, and I'll do that if you want if you want this information. But again, what we're going to be talking about today is glycemic index and glycemic load, and what is the difference? What's the difference? Well, let's see here. Who explains it the best? So I'm reading from Harvard Health. All right, and they're going to give us the lowdown on the glycemic index and glycemic load, and why it's important. So understanding your glycemic load is just as important as the glycemic index of foods. And so what's the difference and why? So if you have diabetes, you probably already know you need to monitor your carbohydrate intake. But different carbohydrate containing foods affect blood sugar differently, and these effects can be quantified by measures known as the glycemic index. So like I said, if you're diabetic, you're already familiar with glycemic index and glycemic load. But you might have even been advised, how to use these numbers to help plan your diet, and that's what we're going to really be talking about today. But what do they mean and how useful are they? So as it reads here, the glycemic index, GI, assigns a numeric score to the food based on how drastically it makes your blood sugar rise. Foods are ranked on a scale of 0 to 100, with pure glucose sugar given a value of 100. Now that's glucose, not sucrose, okay? Because table sugar. So this is pure glucose, right? So that's given a value of 100. The lower food's glycemic index, the slower blood sugar rises after eating that food. In general, the more processed the food is, the higher its GI, and the more fiber or fat in a food, the lower its GI. So let's be very clear on that. The more processed the food, the higher its GI. And the more fiber or fat in a food, the lower its GI. So that's its glycemic index. So fat and fiber are what helps to stop your sugar levels from spiking. This is important because if you are, say if you're doing keto, well, maybe not even keto, but if you're trying to monitor if you're doing OMAD, eating 1 meal a day or something like that, or even if you're struggling with losing weight and you don't know why, you need to increase your fiber, increase your fat, which they tell you, don't eat as much fat, but you need to increase your fiber and your fat in order to slow down your glycemic rise, your insulin spikes, because if you're eating 6 small meals a day, which I know that's what some of the diet plans tell you to do, eat 6 small meals a day. So you would be having, you would be spiking your blood sugar every single time you eat. So, and fiber and fat in those meals will slow down those spikes and maybe lessen those spikes. But really, you don't want to get all those spikes, because when you get an insulin spike, that's going to be ushering that sugar, glucose, which is what is coming after, into your out of your bloodstream, ushering it out of your bloodstream into the cells that should be ready to receive it. But if you're insulin resistant, it will not receive it, and so it's going to usher it into the fat cells, and that's how you start to store more and more fat. All right, but the glycemic index tells just part of the story. What it doesn't tell you is how high your blood sugar could go when you actually eat the food. To understand a food's complete effect on blood sugar, you need to know both how quickly it makes glucose enter the bloodstream and how much glucose per serving it can deliver. A separate measure called the glycemic load does both, which gives you a more accurate picture of a food's real life impact on your blood sugar. Watermelon, I'm glad it's using this as an example, because I just ate the last of my watermelon yesterday. Watermelon, for example, has a high glycemic index of 80, but a serving of watermelon has so little carbohydrate that its glycemic load is only 5. So let's look at more about the glycemic load. All right. Now, some nutrition Some nutrition experts believe that people with diabetes should pay attention to both the glycemic index and the glycemic load to avoid sudden spikes in blood sugar. The American Diabetes Association, on the other hand, says that the total amount of carbohydrate in a food rather than its glycemic index or load is a stronger predictor of what happens to blood sugar. And some dietitians also feel that focusing on the glycemic index and load adds an unneeded layer of complexity to choosing what to eat. The bottom line is following the principles of the glycemic index is likely to be beneficial for people with diabetes, but reaching and staying at a healthy weight is more important for your blood sugar and your health overall. So let's go back and let's venture over to the here to the glycemic load. Come on, waiting for my computer to come up. So again, we're going to look at, again, I want us to understand the difference between glycemic index and glycemic load. So foods, so ranking this, let's see, I'm trying to get this where I can see it. So the glycemic load is a ranking system for carbohydrate-rich foods that measures the amount of carbohydrate in a serving of food. Foods with a glycemic load under 10 are considered low glycemic load foods and have little impact on your blood sugar. Between 10 and 20 are moderate glycemic load foods with moderate impact on blood sugar. And those above 20 are high glycemic load foods that tend to cause blood sugar spikes. So how is a glycemic load related to the glycemic index? The glycemic index indicates how rapidly a carbohydrate is digested and released as glucose sugar into the bloodstream. In other words, how quickly foods break down into sugar in your bloodstream. A food with a high GI glycemic index that raises blood sugar more than a food with a medium to low GI. But the glycemic index does not take into account the amount of carbohydrate in a food. So glycemic load is a better indicator of how a carbohydrate of how a carbohydrate food will affect blood sugar. Is that clear or is it confusing? You want to tell me, Mom? Are you getting it?
Not really.
Okay. So let's go down and let's go and break it. Let's go try and break it down a little further. So, okay, so basically the glycemic load, and it's understandable because I was confused about the difference between these two at first as well. So the glycemic load is a ranking system for carbohydrate-rich foods that measures the amount of carbohydrates in the serving of food. So basically, there's levels. So there's 10. So if there are levels like 10 and under is considered low glycemic load. 10 and 20 is moderate glycemic load. And above 20 is high glycemic load. And that's what's going to really spike your blood sugar. So if it's above 20, it's really going to spike your blood sugar. So as it relates to glycemic index, that tells you how fast the carbohydrate is digested, that how fast it's turned into sugar and into your bloodstream. So they kind of work synergistically. They kind of work together. In other words, you want to know how fast the food is going to turn into sugar, right? And then you want to know how much sugar is it going to turn into. So does that okay?
Understand? I guess if you don't have sugar, you don't even if you don't know you have it, you don't even worry about it. But
Right,
yeah.
right. So that's what these two are going to tell you. One is going to tell you how fast um it turns into sugar. The other one tells you how much sugar it turns into. So, and that's going to help determine.
So the load tell you how much it turned into.
Right, it tells you how. Yeah. So it measures the amount of carbohydrates in a in a food, the glycemic load. Yeah, so it's gonna measure the amount of carbohydrate, and then it's gonna tell you, yeah, so then you'll know how much sugar you're actually, you're actually gonna get, and how much it's gonna turn, how it's gonna affect your blood. So if a food has a high glycemic index and a low glycemic load, for instance, like graham crackers has a GI of 74, that's a glycemic index of 74, so that would make it a high glycemic index food, but it has and the glycemic load is 8.1, right? So you want to know, like, how, so a graham cracker, how will that affect your blood sugar, right? So it's a high glycemic food, so it'll be high on the glycemic index. So I would like automatically be like, no, 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 that's not a food that you want to eat. But then the glycemic load is 8.1. So that's a little bit different, right? Because remember we told us earlier, we said that a glycemic, let's see, so the a glycemic index of, and why come I can't never find it when I go back to look for stuff, and I'm like, but 8.1 is under 10, right? It's 10 and under. So that's low, it's a low glycemic load food, right? So it's high on the glycemic index, but it's low on the glycemic load. So how will that affect your blood sugar? Well, basically, if a food is ranked high on the glycemic index, it has a readily available carbohydrate for quick absorption. However, that same food can have a low glycemic load because there may not actually be as much total carbohydrate in a serving of food. So a low glycemic load is the better indicator that a food won't have that much impact on your blood glucose levels. And the reason why is because if you remember, all of the grains and things were ranking very high on the glycemic index, but what those grains will a lot of times have in them would be fiber. And remember, fiber and fat stops the actual rise of the glucose, so you don't spike as much. And so they would kind of be lower on that. Their glycemic load is going to be lower because you're not exactly getting straight sugar, right? You're not getting sugar just straight. Your body's got to convert it, but it's got to go through, it's got to fight the fiber and all of that stuff in order to get it to turn into sugar. So here are two examples, because again, I mentioned watermelon. Like I said before, watermelon has a high glycemic index of 72, yet a low glycemic load of 7.21. The high GI is based on 5 cups of watermelon, not actual serving size of 1 cup. So the low glycemic load means that one serving of watermelon does not contain as much carbohydrate because it's actually mostly water. Right? So the low glycemic load indicates that a serving of watermelon won't have much impact on your blood sugar. Carrots are another example, another one of my favorite foods, are another example of a low GL food that many people think will raise their blood sugar a lot. And the research is saying that that's not true. It's saying because carrots have a high glycemic index of 71. However, what most people don't know is that the glycemic load for carrots is only 6. Therefore, unless you're going to eat 1.5 pounds of carrots in one sitting, an average serving of carrots will have very little impact on blood glucose levels. That said, juicing a carrot, which means consuming more carrots at once, will have a greater impact on blood glucose. And remember I said we don't want to juice our foods because that strips them of their fiber or either pre-digests it and it causes your blood sugar to rise faster. And in addition, like this says that you would eat way more carrots by juicing them than you would by actually munching on those carrots. So how can knowing the glycemic load and the glycemic index of food be used to make healthier eating choices? So everyone can benefit from eating a balanced diet of protein and fat, and those are your macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbs, right? So everyone can benefit by eating a balanced diet of protein and fat and foods that are lower on the glycemic load and glycemic index. Foods with a lower glycemic load and glycemic index typically are high in fiber, so we need more fiber in our diet, and nutrients, and sustain your energy better throughout the day. Also, knowing the glycemic load of a food is a better indicator of whether that food will cause your blood sugar to spike. So we're going to take a look at some of the glycemic load of some foods. So, and just remember, for those who have diabetes, when the blood sugar spikes, the body releases extra insulin to down your blood sugar. And if your body is asked to release extra insulin on a regular basis, it begins to lead to insulin resistance, right? So that's and some of us are insulin resistant and not yet diabetic. Because you can already be at the precursors for being insulin resistant when you are like entering into pre-diabetes or otherwise metabolic syndrome, because that's when you just start constantly storing fat. And so, but anyway, that insulin resistance is what the problem is. And also knowing the glycemic load of foods can, well, let's see, can it help you lose weight? Do you want to know that? Can it help you lose weight? Yes, it can. Knowing the glycemic load of foods can help you lose weight, or as we like to say, fat. Why? Because consuming low glycemic load and glycemic index food keep you satiated longer, and these foods are more slowly broken down for glucose utilization, because you'll be feeling full longer. Why? Because you're going to have more fiber or more fat. More than likely, it's going to be more fiber in those foods. And when you consume high glycemic load and high glycemic index foods, your blood levels spike, which causes that short-term feeling of fullness. So you get that spike, and then you get that crash. Your blood sugars are going to plummet, and then you're going to crave food again, and you'll ultimately end up consuming more calories. So if you're trying to watch your weight or lose fat, or you have diabetes, you want to keep your blood sugars more stable, you can monitor your food by knowing what's on the glycemic load and the glycemic index. So while I'm waiting for that to pop up, you hear Mr. in the background over there. Let's see. I'm going to take a little break while I get the chart up here, so that and then we'll go over the chart and we'll look at some foods that are high and low on the glycemic index, and we'll also look at a menu for maybe some foods that you could put together a meal plan for low glycemic index and low glycemic load foods. But we'll be back after this quick break.
I tried to stop eating sugar, but there was nothing that was good. Monk fruit, Splenda, oh my God. Xylitol, Trots, and erythritol, the cooling effect. How many batches of cookies did I ruin trying to use those things? Everyone. Nothing was good. So I was like, there's got to be something out there. There's got to be something better. It's some Sweet Plus. It was magic. Oh my gosh. Nobody could tell the difference. It was wonderful.
All right. I am back. All right. So let's see here. So gonna go over the foods, just a small, and you can get this chart that I'm going to share here. You can get this chart by just going over to the website and just telling me that you want it, and then I'll put that up for you. So let's see here. So just look at some low glycemic load foods and low glycemic index foods, or we're going to just do a little comparison here. And remember, we want low glycemic foods are 10 and under. I mean, low glycemic load foods are 10 and under. And low glycemic index foods are like under 50. So that's the difference between the two, how they measure. So let's see, for instance, let's choose like, so like a carrot. We talked about that. Raw carrots, 92 on the glycemic index, which would be relatively high, but the glycemic load is 1. And let's see if we can find something that, well, here's something that's really good. Broccoli, cabbage, celery, cauliflower, green beans, mushrooms, and spinach are 0 on the glycemic index and 0 on glycemic load. So we know we can definitely consume those with no problems. Frozen peas are 48 on the glycemic index, 3.4, and that's for a half cup serving, 3.4 on the glycemic load. So that's a food that is both low on both. I'm just going over a chart here. Peanuts, 13 on the glycemic index, 1.6 on the glycemic load. Soybeans, 20, and that was for a 1 cup serving. Soybeans, 20 on glycemic index, for one cup serving, 1.4 on the glycemic load. Kidney beans are 27 on the glycemic index. This is a 1 cup serving, and 7 on the glycemic load. So those are foods that you could easily consume and have in your diet. Looks like kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, like all of the beans are low on the glycemic index and low on the glycemic load. So those are low. So legumes are good for that. Let's see. Tomato juice is 38. So it would be pineapple juice says it's low on the glycemic index, but it's high on the glycemic load. It's like 14, so that's like moderate, almost high. Let's see what else we got here. Mama, name a food that you'd be interested in. Let's see if I can find it here. Maybe it's on this chart.
I like peaches.
Peaches. Let's see if I can find peaches. Let's look at fruit. Peaches. All right. So peaches, canned and light syrup, are 52 on the glycemic index, so that will put it up just above high. But then on the glycemic load, it's 17.7, so that's a very high food. That's in the can. Do you eat them canned?
Yeah.
You eat them canned? That was canned.
Those little bitty containers too, you know.
Yeah, and that was
that's a 1/4 cup, isn't it?
that was for a one that was for a 1 cup serving.
Oh, okay.
So peaches, that's canned in light syrup, and
But I did not get those.
in the light syrup. Would you get the ones in the heavy syrup?
No, I got one the other day, but I haven't opened it, and it don't have no sugar.
Does it have syrup on it at all? Okay.
I don't think so.
Huh.
It didn't say. It said in its own juice or something like that.
Oh, I don't. That might be considered like
It said
syrup.
no sugar added.
Okay.
Yellow packed in water.
What's the carb?
Oh, well, no,
What is
wait a
the
minute.
carbs on it?
It's got artificial sweetener, and I didn't even know it. Okay.
Okay. What kind
I
of
didn't know it.
what kind of sweetener?
Uh,
What does it start with?
got that aspartame or something?
Oh, aspartame.
No, satine.
Oh, oh.
I guess it's about the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least now you know.
I didn't know that. I thought I was doing good.
Well, now you know. See, now we see the importance of reading labels. Reading the back of the
I thought
package.
it was.
Yeah. Have to read it. You have to go and read it all. So let's look at nuts. I know you like cashews. You make your cashew butter. So cashews are 22 on the glycemic index. They don't have a rating on the glycemic load. So
And I just made it.
yeah, and pecans are a 0 on the glycemic index, and they don't have a anything on the load either. And I always eat pecans with I either eat peanuts or pecans when I have my protein. When I have my protein shake, because I make it real thick, so it's real thick, and like it's like an ice cream. It's real thick. And I always eat it with peanuts or pecans inside. So it's nice to see that those don't have any. They're low on the glycemic index and low on the glycemic load.
What about the English walnuts?
Walnuts are 0 as well. Yeah, so just about mostly all the nuts. Cashews, almonds, hazelnuts, macadamia, pecans, and walnuts. Yeah, they're all 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good on that.
Yeah, good on that part. For those who want to know, ice cream is 38 on the glycemic index, and that's for a half cup serving, and 6 on the glycemic load, and that would be because of the fat that's in there. So, because the lower fat ice cream, pay attention, the lower fat ice cream is 47 on the glycemic index for that same half cup serving, and 9.4 on the glycemic load. You see, so fat makes the difference there. See the difference that fat makes. Let's see. So all meat protein are 0, and nothing's ranking for that. So the following tips are for fat busting meals. Avoid grains, including corn. Avoid potatoes and other white foods like white rice, sugar, and salt. So let's just go from there. Let's just go ahead and just take a look at a low glycemic index meal, low glycemic load and index meal. So here's a sample low GL or low glycemic load menu. So for breakfast would be like a 2-egg omelet with a half cup of onions, low carb bread, and 1 tablespoon of almond butter. And then they go in here and they mention snacks, which would be string cheese and baby carrots. And then lunch, and I don't do all these snacks, so I'm just telling you what it says, but I don't believe in having 6 small meals a day. I think that's too much spiking of your blood sugar. So you really shouldn't do that. I'm just telling you I'm just giving you this for informational purposes, and I'm not saying that this is something that you should absolutely do, because everybody's body is different. And I personally don't believe in 6 small meals a day, because that's too much risk of blood sugar spiking. Even if the foods are low GL and low GI and all of that. It's a gnat in here. I was trying to hit him. But anyway, so for lunch, they recommend 3 ounces of grilled chicken, 1.5 cups of baby spinach, a half cup cucumber, half cup of beets, 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese, and 1 small apple. I would do that. That sounds like a salad to me. That sounds like a salad to me. Throw some lettuce in there, you good to go. Sounds like a good salad. And then they have another snack, which would be a half cup of broccoli and 1 tablespoon of light ranch dressing. Now, remember, those foods don't actually spike your broccoli doesn't spike your blood sugar because remember it's 0 on the glycemic index and 0 on the glycemic load. So it's like a 0-0. Cheese, I guess, is nothing but like pretty much yeah. So those would probably be that's probably a good one too. And then let's see, dinner here is
So cheese is good.
Yeah,
Like sharp cheddar or something.
yeah, I think cheese is good. I don't see they don't actually on this list. I'm looking and I can go find another one with a glycemic load that would include cheese, but this one doesn't have it doesn't this one doesn't include cheese cheese on here.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, but on this one where they're talking about like as a snack and as a meal, it mentions it put cheese there as something that was low glycemic load. So it should be low glycemic load. I'm just scrolling through. This isn't a complete chart. Like I have never seen a complete chart with like everything possibilities on there. But you can easily check the glycemic load of different foods. But let's see. But cheese is going to be mostly consist of, like there's the casein and the fat. So, and the whey is removed from it. So, yeah, probably pretty good with cheese. What was the glycemic load of carrots? Did I see that over here? Because that was the other snack. And then we're going to get to what the dinner was on that. Vegetables. Let's see. Carrots raw. Yeah. 92. One large carrot raw was 92 on the glycemic index, but it's 1 on the glycemic load. But here's the thing, corn, yellow corn is 55 on the glycemic index and 61.5 on the glycemic load. So corn is definitely one of those foods that you should avoid either way, glycemic load or glycemic index, because it's high in both fronts. So that's corn. And boy, do I love me some corn tortillas and some corn. Potatoes too. Potatoes are 104 on the glycemic index, and remember, potatoes the glycemic index of potatoes changes based on how they're cooked. So based on the amount of starch that you create in the potato. So, but this is just an example. It's given 104 on the glycemic index for 1 medium potato, or 213 gram serving. So 1 medium potato, 104 on the glycemic index and 36 on the glycemic load. So it ranks high. So potatoes and carrots both rank high. But sweet potato, on the other hand, is 54. It's high on the glycemic index, but it's 12.4, which is moderate on the glycemic load. And that's for a 1 cup serving. So, and I love potatoes, man, and I got a batch of them cooked up in the refrigerator already. And this doesn't really get much into talking about resistant starch, but we'll save that for another day. So let's continue on with the meal, and we'll wrap up. So for dinner, a 3-ounce serving of salmon with mango, corn, cilantro, salsa, which means in here you're not getting enough corn for anything. 6 spears of asparagus drizzled with virgin olive oil and an 8-ounce seltzer. That's what they suggest, as a suggested dinner. And 4 ounces of sugar-free pudding as they're suggesting for dessert to go along with your dinner, but for that last snack of the day. But again, like I said, I don't believe in all of those in between meals and all of those snacks and things like that. But that's just an example of what you can of a meal of a day's worth of eating. And for me, I could divide that into 2 days, but for a day's worth of eating, we're actually not doing that well at all. And we really need to pay attention to those things, whether it's a uh, high glycemic load food, or whether it's a, a, a high glycemic index food. And preferably you want the food to fall low in both categories, or at least low on the glycemic load side of things. So that's just a little information for us there. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, go ahead and just drop me a message, drop me a note, and let's discuss it. Right? Let's further discuss it. But let's see here. Close this tab up here. So yeah, so if you like this kind of content, just go ahead and let me know. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up on the video. If there's something else that you want to talk about, just let me know, and I'd be happy to bring that information over to you. So let's see, if you want to get a hold of the chart that I was looking at, go ahead and drop me a line over at sairnt.com. That is Sarah Nutritional Therapy, and just let me know that you want the chart that I was talking about. Let's see here. I'll just go ahead and let us know again. That's SAIRNT. That stands for Sugar Addiction is Real. And if you want to get a hold of the most spectacular sweetener, or that's what I call it, you can go over to sumsweet.com. That's SUMSWEET.com to get a hold of the sweetener. And let's see, that's all the housekeeping and things that I have for today. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe to us over on YouTube. YouTube is SAIRNT. That's the YouTube channel, SAIRNT. Go ahead and subscribe over there so you'll know whenever we go live. If you're friends with me on Facebook, or if you're following me on Instagram, you'll know when we go live on Instagram. If you're following SumSweet over on Instagram, you'll know when I go live. If you're following me on Facebook, you'll know when I go live. And I also invite you to follow me again on YouTube. SAIRNT is the YouTube channel. Until next time, peace and blessings.